Just now, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Glad that you're here. We have almost 70 folks on the call. So once we hit about 100, we might see some difficulty with our connection, but we haven't been seeing problems with that. So feel free to keep your cameras on. We love to see your faces. And we particularly love it if you have kids there with you. So remember um, that you can have those cameras on. My name is Melissa Goff. I am the superintendent of schools, and I'm going to just run through the way that these meetings go, and then I'm going to let other staff members on the call introduce themselves. So we have, directly following this meeting, we have a meeting in Spanish. So this meeting lasts for about an hour, and then we have a meeting in Spanish for a little over an hour so that there's more time for translation to happen, for interpretation to happen. And tonight, what we're going to talk about, typically how this works is we cover a couple subjects with you, but we really try to just open up the chat so you can ask as many questions as possible. And we, as staff members, try to respond in kind of a real rapid fire way to the questions that you have. So we leave that pretty open and want to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask the questions that are most in the front of your mind right now. We know that with elementary starting back last week and middle schoolers starting back this week, and then at the end of the month, us having everybody going for 4 days a week if they're going in person, that you're likely to have quite a few questions about how all of that works. So we want to make sure to answer that for you. We also are going to talk to you a little bit about school calendars. So we want you to be aware of that. So we'll leave some time at the end today, about 15 minutes for the school calendar piece of introduction to you. And then if we have time to get back to other questions that still exist, we will do that. So yes, so again, the questions go in the chat rather than verbally because it helps us go more quickly. And with that, I will send this over to Lisa.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming. My name is Lisa Harlan, and I am the assistant superintendent in GAPS. I was trying to look to see if we have, I know looking at the call, we have some staff. I can see some principals and some teachers on the call. So who are, parents and in the community too. So thanks for coming. We will just have a format that we'll go back and forth asking and answering questions. Feel free to put that in the chat. And if there's anything that we don't know, aren't sure about, we'll let you know, and then we'll be able to kind of get back to you. So Melissa, I don't know, I think we have our first question. If you want to just dive in.
I've got it. So the first question from Katie is, why are the high school students only going to school for approximately 5 hours when in-person starts, while middle school and elementary days are 6+ hours? And the answer to that is enrollment numbers. And that is it. So we have more kids at the comprehensive high schools than we have at any of the schools, of course, in grades K-8. So the number of kids at our high schools that will be going to school in person on campus prohibit us from having everybody get lunch safely. So when we were looking at how do we make sure that all of our students get breakfast and lunch, and that we're able to cover all of the course subjects that we need to cover, we just simply could not make high school fit. And we felt that it was important to have that every other day or that everyday opportunity rather than the every other day that has been scheduled. So what you may not know is the rules that changed with the most recent update from the Oregon Health Authority went from 6 feet to 3 feet within the classroom. So kids can sit much closer together now than they could before that change took place. However, in lunchrooms, when kids are eating, they have to be 6 feet apart from each other. And that's where the math doesn't work for us to be able to have high schoolers in school for more time in the day. As it is, we have them going to school till 12:50 just in their classes, and lunch is not until 12:50. So if you have a high schooler, please make sure they eat breakfast and or that they grab the breakfast at school, which is free to everybody. It's everyone still ages 1 through 18 get free meals, breakfast and lunch every day. So they can grab that meal at school and eat in the classroom. Not in the classroom, they have assigned spaces for breakfast in the morning because we have so many fewer kids who eat breakfast than eat lunch because so many kids eat breakfast at home. So, but in the afternoon at 12:50, what will happen is all of the high schoolers will be released. Those who want to grab a lunch can go grab their lunch if they walked to school or they drove a car or get a ride to school. Then they'll just leave campus right away at 12:50. Those kids who are eating on campus will be assigned specific areas where they need to eat. So they will be eating with the same cohort of kids a week at a time for a full week at a time. And part of that is so if one of the students in that cohort gets sick, it's not every single kid who stays to eat lunch before they ride the school bus home. It's just the kids who are seated together in that cohort area. So for all of those reasons, we just couldn't get more instructional time out of the high school day.
Not without serving lunch for lots of kiddos 6 feet apart. So I'm going to take the next one if that's okay. It says, because I'm super excited, summer school info. So a couple of things about summer school. We will have offerings that are attached to our schools, so our high schools or middle schools. It probably won't be every elementary school. It'll be like an elementary program. So we'll have, kind of several schools coming together for academic summer school opportunities. In addition, though, we have been meeting with partners around what are some opportunities for the summer, everywhere from, the library, parks and rec, LB, Boys and Girls Club, everybody to say what are some of the programs that we could have in the summer. So I've been meeting with LB actually weekly, and we'll be able to offer there free of charge to students and providing transportation, things like career camps. So there are week-long camps where you explore different careers, mega academies that look at the megatronics, that's geared more towards high school students. We have camps that we're working on for week-long camps for middle school students as well. And then talking about, what would it look like? So everything from 4 credit to non-credit options. So if you wanted to get credit to get ahead, high school credit and or college credit through LB, or to do some credit recovery, those options would be available not only through your high school, but also options through LB. So we actually are going to have a lot of opportunity in the summer for as much as kiddos want to and parents want to take advantage of it. And what we're trying to do is just have a variety of them. So maybe I want my kiddo to do kind of the academic summer school that's going to run for, let's say, 5 weeks, but it's summer and I want there to be different activities too. I might be able to sign them up for a week-long camp that is exploring, different like activities outside, or I'm trying to think of the name of the middle school camp that we were talking about, but there will be several opportunities for, everything from bike and water safety for the littles to kind of adventure camps. So the goal is that there would be something for everybody and that kids could participate as much or as little as their kind of schedule allows, so that if you were leaving to visit family in the summer or something else, it wasn't like you had to sign up, and if you weren't going to be there, for 6 weeks in a row, then it wouldn't be available to you. So specific opportunities both through your school, and certainly we'll have several partnerships. We'll put out a menu about May 1st of all of the different kind of summer opportunities to start signing students up for kind of what that looks like, just so we can get a handle on helping with enrollment and hooking people up with the programs that they are interested in.
The other piece, did you mention about transportation? I can take that.
I did a little bit, but it was quick.
Okay.
I could provide transportation, but
yeah, So just a little more detail on transportation. So we will be providing transportation, but we'll also be providing it in between places where your child might be getting services. So your child might go to the YMCA in the afternoon, but in the morning be at Waverly getting instruction. So what we're looking at is how do we make sure that we have kind of like a city bus line, our transportation drivers, kind of there's another one coming along every minute, every 15 minutes, right? So stopping at designated sites to pick up and drop off further along the line. And we'll have several buses running like that at strategic places.
So another question, I have kiddos at 2 different elementary schools. Will it be okay that they're coming from 2 schools and 2 different cohorts? Absolutely. For ease for parents, they can absolutely be part of kind of the same summer school program at one or the other schools. That works. Will there be summer options for kids in SLC or high functioning kind of programs? We're working with special programs right now on what that might look like. And then also trying to assess kind of the need and want for students and parents in our specialized programs. Brittany asks a great question. Are K-2 students going to learn other subjects besides, reading, writing, math? Absolutely. And it's going to be kind of, experiential, hands-on. The weather is great. Getting outside and being able to do different things, I think will be really exciting for kids. Certainly will always include a lot of practice and instruction specifically for our really young readers. And part of that is a love of reading. And so certainly for math as well, but yes, it will be much more than just kind of math and English language arts.
So our next question is from Tyler, and this is hot off the presses
It
today.
is.
When will we have more information on testing this year? And I only picked this one because it's a fun one. I beat
It
you.
is, I know.
So actually this year, the state of Oregon waiver just got approved. And we this year will actually be doing a survey this year. Students will be doing a survey rather than taking their state assessments. So it's easy to do with no proctor because you can do it from where your student's learning. So it's just an online, about a 30-minute survey, asks a bunch of questions, but it's not but they aren't academic questions. So that will feel very different.
Yep. So our testing got waived for this year, and we will issue a survey to see what kids need. So I know that was an exciting one. I saw that, and then I was so excited, and you took the exciting one, man. All right. So Sarah asks, can you explain what busing will look like with kids still distancing on the bus? Typically, there are 2 to 3 elementary students in each seats. Are there really enough buses to accommodate less students per route? So remember, one of the things that we asked, and one of the things that people have said too, is that they didn't want transportation for their kiddo because of their concerns for safety and other things. And so there is not enough room on the bus, and nor will there be for 6 feet of distancing, right? There won't be 2 to 3 elementary students in the seats. There will be much fewer, but also there have been much fewer people who are opting for transportation. So we've been running typically, I would say about 25% of the total population who's coming to school right now, depending on the school. Some schools are more bus dependent than others, just where they're placed, have been accessing transportation. So that's made it a little bit easier. I don't know that we'd be able to do it if everyone was accessing transportation like they have in years past. I'm not sure that we'd literally have enough drivers or buses. So it has been working so far.
Katie asks if we have any idea what fall of 2021 will look like for school. And actually, one of the questions that I'll have for you guys tonight is about the school calendar for next year, which is a big question, right? When is the first day of school? When is the last day of school? And what do the holidays, et cetera, look like in between? But more specifically, will kids still be wearing masks? We be only going 4 days a week? Will we be needing to kind of back up the truck? Those are hard answers for us to be able to provide to you. But what I can tell you is this: we're actually planning 2 pathways for the fall. So we are planning based on what if COVID is still so restrictive that we are needing to still be in a hybrid model rather than a full-time in-person learning model. And then the other is, what if COVID doesn't restrict us in that way? We know either way, we believe either way, kids will still be wearing masks, for example. We believe there will be protocols around health and safety that will continue as well. But we also do have some unknowns for us around whether or not we may need to back up a little bit during summer months if we see that new variants arise and interrupt things for us again. What I can tell you is that our intentions, in case you're a CDL parent, a distance learning parent, we want you to know that our intent is to continue to have distance learning next year, so that we anticipate we won't have nearly the same number of students in distance learning next year, but we also recognize that for some students, distance learning has shown to be more effective for some of our students. And so rather than go back to strictly the traditional model and AOL, we want to maintain that model option for students as well. So if you think you may still be interested in maintaining that, just know when we have CDL in the fall, if we end up having most kids go back to a more regular schedule, your child will likely have a district assigned teacher rather than a teacher who's assigned from your school, from your child's school. And that is simply because of numbers. So we just wouldn't have enough staff members from each school to assign.
Yeah. My prediction, because it's a game of prediction, and I mean, my gosh, I've lost that game a lot this year, but I do predict that we'll probably be back to normal. I don't know how else to call it. I don't think anything's really normal anymore, but more typical. But I do think we'll still see masks for a bit. So I guess we can see how that pans out, Melissa. We can bet some peanut M&Ms on how it works.
Okay, I'm going to read you the next one.
All right.
And let you answer it from Melissa.
Lay it on me.
The use of Chromebooks has led to less handwritten work for my second grader. I assume this is the case for other students as well. Have there been discussions about how to address some of the lagging handwriting skills that will likely be seen going forward?
Yeah, so one of the things that we know, and actually we do, we have, I don't want to call it a curriculum because it sounds a little too much, but we use handwriting. It's called Handwriting Without Tears. Part of being able to handwrite for very young students now, typically they need to learn how to type and other things, right, as they get older. But it actually is really great for their fine motor, right? It's good development for them to develop fine motor skills with their hands and their fingers. And so I imagine that you may see more use of that. It's called Handwriting Without Tears, but absolutely. I think we'll address lagging skills specific to handwriting, just like we would lagging skills for other things. And while that's not atypical, we see that in elementary in general. The one thing that may be atypical is that a larger, more students have that lagging skill. And so it's addressed in a more holistic way. But great question.
So Brenda asks a question about summer school, and I worry a little bit about us being precise with our dates, Brenda. So we mentioned that dates and information should be available around May 1st, and you're wondering if that will be available before students submit their class requests for next year, and whether it would be good to coordinate, or you're saying it would be good to coordinate, of course, especially for students who want to take classes for credit. So here's what I would say. Yes, it will be great to coordinate, and where we can, we will do that. I want you to know that we are asking counselors for the recommended courses that we offer during the summer for credit, so that they are looking at where we're seeing some students who may need credit that they didn't get because of the way the schedules worked, but also some of those courses that students have already expressed interest for in preparation for their own forecasting. So, and we'll work with LBCC around those. One of the things that we're really pleased about with LBCC is how well they've leaned in, how they're so willing to offer whatever courses we want. And that doesn't mean our high school teachers won't also be teaching courses, because I'm sure that they will. We do know that sometimes our students want to learn in a different setting. So LBCC is affording us the opportunity to learn either on our campus or have kids learn at LBCC as well, which is another exciting piece. But yes, even if you ended up submitting your forecasting sheet and then your child took the class during the summer for credit, they would be able to then enroll in a different class in the fall at their school. HD writes, lunch pickup locations. The new times don't work as CDL students are in class during the pickup times. Is this going to get fixed to better align with the break times for students? We have given that information to the head of nutrition services, and I'm actually going to ask Andrew, who's our communications director and on the call, to take note of that again. I know that she's working on those. So, and it's a complex puzzle because she's also got all of our kitchens now will be running. So at all of our school sites, we are serving both breakfast and lunch beginning the end of April, by the end of April, by the time the high schools open. And the challenge with that then is it makes it difficult for all of the exterior pickup locations and to coordinate the pickup locations that are even on campus. And so making sure that her nutrition services staff are able to prep enough meals in time for you is part of what she is trying to problem solve right now. So she knows that that doesn't work right now and is on it. Is there an update on how elementary CDL students will be dispersed or how teachers will be designated for distance learning once full-time in-person starts at the end of the month, Lisa?
Yes, so today was actually the deadline for parents to say, actually, I want to change, or no, we don't want to go back 4 days a week. And so actually tomorrow, that's the work that will be happening with the elementary director and the elementary school principal. So they haven't had the information that says how many parents want to do what. Today was the deadline for parents. And so that's the work that will be happening tomorrow. And then we'll be notifying staff and parents and kids around kind of those things. So it is a timely question and it's literally happening as we speak. I'm sure elementary principals will be spending tonight. I mean, I can just imagine them right now trying to get started on that puzzle.
So Katie asks about all students being eligible for summer school programs this summer. And yes, all students not only will be eligible, but our intention is to provide summer school for free. So our intention is to have no cost to your children this summer. And if you have heard that federal and state governments have actually earmarked dollars for schools to make that happen. And that's what we're going to use those dollars up this summer. You can only use them during one summer. So it's a great investment for us. And we intend to make sure that your kids definitely benefit from each of those dollars.
When families expect to know if there's a teacher change for their elementary children, that'll happen next week. Like I said, they're working on it now. And then Melissa, help me with Sarah's question.
I can, yeah. So follow up on, I know, follow up on transportation. You're so, when the kids go all day, that will change when the kids go all day, that will change what families may elect to do. When will we find out about stating what our preference is? And when will we find out about the routes for April 26th? And so I don't know exactly when you find out about the routes, but I can tell you this, that I just want to make it clear that we do expect, as we go to 4 days a week, that we will see some students that roll out of in-person learning, and we will see students who roll in to in-person learning. And we also anticipate that of those who have rolled in to in-person learning, at the beginning, we'll have more parents choosing to drive their own children to school. But as time passes, what school systems are seeing is parents become more comfortable over time. And so more students end up on the bus in transportation. So I want to make sure that you understand that what we anticipate being this where the buses start may not be where buses end, but the buses have their safety protocols still in place that are really strict, and some things such as leaving windows open on the buses. Yay, it should be warm weather. So that there's air circulation while kids are in the buses. But I don't know when will we find out about stating. So is your question about stating what your preference is for whether or not your child gets transportation? No. Yes. Lisa went like this, then she went
I
like
know,
that.
sorry. I think it is like, hey, if we said we didn't want transportation before and now we do, how do we do that? And I would encourage
Mhm.
you to call the transportation department. They are amazing and
Mhm.
like unsung heroes, I think. But just to say, hey, this is our address. Where's the nearest stop? I'm interested. My child goes to this school. In accessing transportation, I think that is. And so, Andrew, if you could put the number of the transportation department in the chat for Sarah, that would be awesome.
Great.
And
And this one's for you, Lisa. Will someone be sharing a traffic plan, especially for West Albany High School, for points of entry and exit, and how the school wants parents to drop off and pick up students? Good question.
that's a
That's
great
really, really
question.
good.
So yes, and I would look for, I'm trying to think of the date. You will probably be getting that next week because we know that the freshman dates happen next Thursday. And so I will double check. And I feel like something was on one of the parent links, but I'm going to double check. I know, Jean, you're also on the call. I saw your name. So if you have any information, feel free to put it in the chat and I will follow up on that to make sure that parents get kind of the traffic flow pattern plan if they haven't already. Great question.
All right. Tyler, for adults wanting to volunteer and be more involved with their children's classrooms, are there options opening up or are parents largely remaining cut out of the classroom for now? What can parents do to help when we are frequently hearing about teachers that are stretched thin and need help? Great question. And unfortunately, the answer to the second question, well, the answer to the first question isn't what we would hope. So right now, only what the state designates as essential personnel are allowed to be on school campuses. And that's not going to change when schools reopen to 4 days a week. So we are unable at this point in time to have volunteers on campus. And yes, staff needs support as well. So parents, there are definitely, what I would encourage you to do is two things. One, just ask your child's teacher about how can I help. That's probably the most direct way to support. But you may have some kind of non-traditional ways that you might want to support. So you can contact the principal or contact the PTA at the school, and they can tell you some other ways that you can engage and provide help. I can tell you that anything you do, even just send a note every day saying, hey, it's Tuesday and I still appreciate you, is super helpful to staff because they are all working really hard and they know that you would be there in person if we could let you be there in person, and we would let you be there in person if we could.
For sure. I'll take the next one. Katie, thank you. Kelly says, I'm very concerned for my child. He told me that they're required to wear masks during physical activity, PE, running. This concerns me on so many levels. What is your plan to address this situation? So Kelly, I would tell you that masks are required during PE, running or other things. And there isn't another option for kids in that situation. I would give you some, comfort in knowing that, for instance, cross country season is just winding up now. Track has started. All of those students are running with masks on, and it doesn't feel great, right? Especially when you're breathing and it gets wet, it feels kind of gross against your face, but it's completely safe to do so. So that will be required for PE for sure. And then Tyler mentions, he says, you mentioned typing being important, but early grades are pushed to Chrome pads where they don't get typing experience. Is there any thought to expanding Chromebook usage for younger grades, again, to develop this necessary skill? And so I would say a few things. One, having the skill to be able to do some, kind of logging in or things like that for very young kids. It's true, but, and the goal really is for kind of their fine motor in their writing. They don't do a ton of typing practice. Generally, I would say that starts maybe in the second grade or third grade, and there aren't currently plans to start typing practice younger than that, just because we want them to have some of the other fine motor skills to be able to do that. And you actually need those to type as well. It doesn't seem like it's hard, but the buttons are pretty close together if you have little hands that don't have great fine motor control. So Rachel asks, will they still be using their Chromebooks going back? And so the answer is yes, it will be used kind of differently. So one of the things that's been really nice, I know, even as a parent too, is the ability for kids to be able to kind of see everything that's due, what's missing, and then electronically. I don't know if any of you have kiddos that it seems like every piece of paper was either going to get lost, half ripped, or crumbled in the backpack, just the keeping track of the paper things. So the ability to have class notes and have kind of PowerPoints and things like that available to do homework and turn in that way will still be available. They'll be learning from their teacher live, but I imagine things like, instead of sitting down and doing a group poster, for example, hey, we just read a story and I want you guys to map out the main characters and the setting, and we're going to do something on a piece of paper together in a group. They wouldn't. They'd be doing group work and they'd be in each other's proximity, but they'd be doing it on for a Google Doc, for example, so that they could collaborate. So they'll definitely still be using their Chromebooks. It'll be different than they have been before, but a valuable tool nevertheless for students when we can't necessarily do some things in the way that we would normally.
Okay, we are going to start going on a little bit of a speed round because we do want to talk to you about the school year calendar too. And we've got 32 new messages from my page that I'm on. So here we go. When kitchens reopen, I know, but you still have to answer. Okay, when kitchens reopen, does that mean kids will get hot meals or still on NJ and
like PB&J and other things?
Oh, like PB&J, yeah, automatic. They won't get hot meals, I don't think. They'll still be in sack lunches. So because of the number of lunches that we need to produce and because we need to have a grab and go, in many cases, they'll still be cold lunches. If they're able to move to hot lunches, they definitely will.
If we want to switch from in-person to back to CDL, is that an option? I figure it's easier to switch back to CDL versus in person. I answered in the chat, Megan, yes, you are correct. It is easier to go from in-person to then CDL.
Christine, Kate's sixth grader.
Yep, go for it.
Oh, whoops, sorry, I skipped Christine's because I thought it was just a comment.
It said the food for all kids, at least my elementary kiddo during the day, is so very amazing. Will this continue for full day class? And I just said, Christine, yes, it will.
Kate's sixth grader would like to know when or if we can go back to 5 days. That would not be until the fall at the earliest, but thank you for wanting to. Whoop, whoop. That's
and we great. Can't wait for you to be back 5 full days with us too. I could see you down there. I love it. Says, once we return to full day, if a child has to quarantine apart from their class, will they join a district CDL or how will that work? I know currently they would just join the CDL cohort with their teacher, or at least that's the way it is at our school. So I think it would depend on how long they had to quarantine. The thing that'll be a little different in the fall is our CDL classes will kind of have like an Albany online, not really, but it'll just be for CDL. So it won't necessarily be like I'm CDL at Periwinkle.
Not fall, she's asking full day.
Okay, look at me. They, depending on how long, I think they would probably just do some of their work kind of virtually, and they absolutely could join the CDL class, but it would be a different teacher, right? The teacher that they have all day in person would not also have a CDL section.
Thank you. There are so many complexities and moving parts. Oh, that's just a compliment. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Jean says she doesn't have any details on the traffic pattern for West Albany, but she's going to follow up and make sure that it gets on the West Albany website. And because she will make sure, because Jean's the one who does the website. So
she does. Yep. HD, thank you for this question. Will summer school include Spanish and English instruction for those students in the dual immersion program? Yes, it will. They've lost so much immersion time over the last year. Yeah, so it's a commitment to us to make sure that we are continuing Spanish-based instruction, not only for kids who are in the dual immersion program, but for those students for whom Spanish is their native language and who would benefit from that as well.
Keith, thank you for this question. I appreciate it. Can you share where the directive for mask wearing is coming from so people can who are specifically concerned about that can direct their frustration in the right direction? I appreciate that. And it is one of the requirements to have in-person school for staff and for students. And so
the Oregon Health Authority and the Oregon Department of Education are the two agencies that dictate what we have to do regarding safety protocols, and that's one of their requirements.
Yep. Jen says, for school board meetings, why when reading business from the public only read and not talked about? Great question.
It's a good question.
For school board meetings, they're public meetings, which means they are viewed by the public, but they are not meetings, and they're not required to be meetings by law or statute or anything else, to be a meeting where they interact with the public. So school boards typically allow for public comment, but they never actually talk about what is on the public comment, because they already have a set agenda that they've set before, like the week before. And so there's some specific business that they have to attend to in terms of like budgets and approving things to pay for. And so I think every school board I've experienced, they'll read public comments, but the point of the public comments isn't to adjust their agenda for that meeting.
And I will just add to that. So in some of the school districts that I've worked in, the school board has only allowed public comment on items that are already on the agenda. So you would not be able to comment on items that aren't on the school board agenda for that evening in other districts. Our district just says it's open. So it's 3 minutes. So if you want to make public comment to the school board, you just need to do something, have something in writing that takes about 3 minutes to read.
Tyler says younger kiddos, yeah, carrying technology back and forth. Is there some plan for insurance as we've seen past, or do we just have them swing by the office and get a new one? Both, but yep, you can swing by the office and have them get a new one if something happens to their technology. Can I pick up a school Chromebook since he's been using a personal device home? Rachel, yes, you absolutely can. We have Chromebooks for that exact purpose for kids to check out. And then we'll also have extras available in the classroom. So if I bring mine, and this would happen in our house, bring mine and you forget to charge it, dies halfway through, there's one that you can use to finish up what you're doing. Yeah.
Pro tip for masks in PE, you can, some parents have found disposable masks are more breathable during sports. So that's a thank you, Jen, for the tip. Yeah. How is the high school bus system working? My older daughter can drive in the morning, but my younger daughter will need to catch the bus home. Yep, totally fine. It's okay. Yeah. Your younger daughter will need to wait until after the lunch period. The buses won't come to pick up kids till about 1:15, 1:20. So they get out at 12:50, time to eat lunch. Buses come about 1:15, 1:20. Before spring break, GAPS had a 14-day quarantine for out-of-state travel. Has that changed with the new CDC recommendations? So it depends. It depends on vaccination. So if you're fully vaccinated, then you don't have to quarantine. So that's how that's changed. I know for students that doesn't matter right in the moment, but it looks like we may be getting closer to vaccinations for kids, at least at the high school ages. Go ahead. You got it?
I'll read it. You answer. Will the CDL instruction be recorded? If so, if a student needed to quarantine, could those recordings be shared with them so they could benefit from the instruction, even if they can't join the class? And I would say, yes, absolutely. I think that's a possibility. One of the things that we've noticed in that, though, is sometimes the recordings are quite long, right? When you just hit record, because you're recording, questions and kind of other things. And we actually take up quite a bit of like memory, storing kind of all of these recordings. And so, what we've asked that people do is just record kind of the main part of the instructional part of the lesson that's a new skill or something that they're learning. So it doesn't necessarily replicate kind of the whole day, but it's definitely helpful. So we will look into continue doing that. We think it's been helpful as well. Andrew is our communications director, and he put in just some information. And then Jen says that makes no sense. You can still be a carrier or get COVID with having the vaccine. Yeah, so you'd be putting kids at risk. Yeah. When it comes to the quarantine and the out-of-state travel, Jen, I think that's what you're referring to. CDC generally comes out with recommendations. And then after that, the Oregon Health Authority and ODE take those recommendations and say, okay, here are the new regulations that schools have to follow. So when it comes to kind of those travel ones, they're recommendations, and we follow the travel recommendations that come out from OHA and ODE.
So Kate asked about if my child is in person and travels out of state, how will they receive instruction during that post-travel quarantine? So I'm going to let Lisa answer that, and I am actually going to start working on pulling up what I want to show you guys in just a second.
So I think, Kate, it might depend by level. I would suggest, so I'm going to assume it's a middle school or high school age student, and I would have them follow along with kind of the assignments and other things in their Canvas. I wouldn't have them necessarily go into a CDL class because would be a different teacher and they might be at a slightly different place. But I think depending on the class, that would be a possibility as well.
Okay, so I just wanted to share with you guys a little bit of information regarding our school calendar that's coming up. So on the board agenda on Monday night, they had some school calendar options to consider for this school year. And one of the things that was a surprise was that they actually did not end up adopting a school calendar for you for next year, and instead have asked for us to kind of go back and get some more opinions and to also have some more conversations. They'll have more conversation as a board. So I want to walk through with you the 3 calendars that they have been considering. And then we're going to take a poll of you guys. You're going to vote. And don't worry, your vote is not, thank you, Tyler. Your vote is non-binding. It's also anonymous. So no one will know what you voted for, but we're trying to get a general idea of where parents are. And then in the comments, I want you to put what your feedback is regarding the, why you like a certain calendar or don't. Okay. So here we go. So the first calendar that the board was looking at was this calendar that you hopefully can see. And I'm not, there we go. Okay. This is calendar A, and it's your typical calendar. So it starts after Labor Day, has what we have in GAPS is a pretty typical Thanksgiving time period, which means that there's conference day kind of on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and then the Thursday, Thanksgiving holiday, and Friday are off. Has 2 weeks at Christmas time and that's typical. And then kids get out in the middle of June. So this calendar would have students, their last day being June 15th. Okay, very typical calendar. You've seen that before, just not this year because nothing's typical this year. Here's the next calendar. The board really has discussed over the course of the last couple of years, and some of the board members who are currently on the board ran for the board with wanting to shrink summers, wanting to provide less time in between student contact days. So the board is really finding that to be of a high value right now. And the reason the board finds that to be high value is that we know that the longer that students are without instruction, the regression or their sliding backwards grows at a more alarming rate. Okay, so if kids are out for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, it's a rather limited slide, and that's kind of customary for us to have a 2-week break, and we really don't see any slide with 2 weeks. But once you get beyond 4 weeks, you definitely see many kids sliding backwards, and that means that they have forgotten some of the information that they learned in the time previous to that month off. So right now, our summer time off for kids is about 2.5 months. So the board is interested in getting input on how can we have fewer days in between instructional chunks. So calendar B starts that work. It actually has kids starting school before Labor Day. So the week right before Labor Day, which this year, just the way the calendar works, is not that early. It's August 31st. So it doesn't really infringe on August much at all. It has a longer break at the Thanksgiving holiday. So that has a full week off in November. Hopefully you can see my cursor. I'm not sure you can actually. And then in December, it still just has the 2 weeks off that we're used to. In March, it has 2 weeks off for spring break. So basically the second half of March is vacation time for your child. And then what that does is it allows us, what all of those adjustments do is it allows us to add another week to the end of the school year so that kids get out of school on June 22nd. So that really helps shore up by starting at the end of August. If this were to be a recurring calendar, starting at the end of August and not getting out until the end of the third week of June gains us 2 weeks for of less, wait, 2 fewer weeks in between the 2 instructional time periods. So then the board voted on this one and they said no to this one because they didn't think it was aggressive enough. So then we talked a bit about this calendar kind of gives you a look, but it isn't as graphically pleasing to the eye. Sorry, I'm going to get it bigger for you. So this calendar is a more typical year-round calendar feel. And this actually was proposed by the Department of Education specifically because they anticipate we could have another interruption to the school year if COVID variants end up causing problems for attendance. So that's why they've designed this, but it gives me an opportunity to kind of show you what the board is thinking. In this model, kids would start school at the beginning of August. So they'd have half of June and all of July off of school, but they would start back to school that first week of August. And then they would go to school. Basically, they'd go to school except for the typical 3-day holidays until Thanksgiving, and they'd have the week off at Thanksgiving. They would then have 3 to 4 weeks off at Christmas time. So kind of middle of December to middle of January, which is more similar to what you see some colleges and universities having. Then having another 2 weeks off in March and running until the end of the third or the end of the fourth week of June, depending how that lined up. So that would really end up shrinking the time off to about 4 weeks. And this doesn't, I saw Lisa lean in, and if you're looking really closely at the calendar, the weeks probably don't add up perfectly because I am rounding, I'm giving you 2 weeks here or 3 weeks there.
I'm getting older and it's harder to see. So I'm leaning in for detail.
So the key with the third calendar is really that it's designed to have students only have about a month off during the summer, and then to have longer breaks intermittently throughout the school year. So there are advantages and disadvantages to all 3 of those calendars. And perfect, you guys are giving some feedback in the chat, and I'd really like you to do that. And I'm going to ask Andrew to put a poll up for you where I'm going to ask you to just off of that. Wait, first, do you have any questions that just I can quickly answer? If kids are back in August, would AC be installed? Sarah, brilliant question. No, because we don't have enough money to do that in all of the schools right away. So what we would have to do is figure out what can we do with the resources that we have. And then also think about, one of the things that I think about is that we have a lot of schools in this country that are in the bottom third of the geographically in much hotter climates who don't have air conditioning either within their schools. We've become kind of accustomed to kind of a certain temperature, but that would certainly be an issue for our schools. Certainly would be a big deal. Okay. Yes, perfect. Great. Awesome. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. All right, Andrew, can you go ahead and share the poll, please?
It's shared.
All right. So once we hit about 95 voters, then Andrew, you can just share the results. And I can't see either the poll or the results because Andrew and I don't know, we're having a difficult time with our account.
I saw the poll. The answers will pop up when it's completed. So there was a question, you guys are giving great feedback, thank you. Would the calendar be for all schools, or would a high school have a different calendar and middle school? And I would say the academic calendar is adopted for all schools, kind of at all levels. We don't have different academic calendars, or haven't so far, for like elementary, middle, or high.
Okay, two quick things. Wednesday's early release. So we didn't talk about, the board did not even address Wednesday's early release. I think the board has kind of assumed that the professional development for teachers will continue to be necessary on Wednesdays, regardless of what calendar that they used. And then if you cannot see the poll, go down to the bottom of your screen where it says polls. Sometimes you can get it to show back up, but sometimes we had a problem with this with our students earlier this week as well. Who, by the way, might surprise you with their answers.
Lots of great just input around childcare options, around, you know, transitioning kind of in time, 1 or 2 weeks is more doable than something else. Valuing time together in the nice weather months as a family to do things.
Awesome. All right, so do we have the results?
I can read them. I don't know if others can see it or not, but
I don't think so.
okay, so we have 40 votes, 54% for answer 2, which are calendar B. 27 votes, 36% for calendar A, and 8 votes, 11% for calendar C.
Okay, awesome. And I see you guys have put a lot of really great details in your in the comments. Sorry, I'm reading while I'm trying to talk to you, but that's super, it's really helpful. And yeah, I think that the piece around a lot of what you've talked about has been mentioned as well by the board members, that we've discussed this before, and why are we coming back to a discussion that we've had before? That we have high schoolers who work. There's an agricultural season, and some families really are engaged differently with work during the agricultural summer season. That
That's it. Yeah, I love just seeing the poll results. It's super interesting.
So all of your comments, we're just gonna grab those and we'll share those with the board as part of the calendar conversation. So so know that those will go forward. You don't need to write your public comment notes unless you would like to about the calendar. If you feel really passionate about a single calendar and you really think there are certain pieces that we should be considering, of course, feel free to do so, but know that these comments will make it back to the board because we will export them from here. Okay. All right, so that concludes our program in English. Thank you all for joining us. We super appreciate you being here. We are going to take a quick break for those staff on the call so we can get a glass of water and welcome our Spanish-speaking families in. So thanks you guys very, very much. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.